I never thought revenge would taste like fresh-cut grass and the metallic tang of a .45 in my glove box. But there I was, idling my F-150 on the shoulder of County Road 17, watching her strut out of that McMansion like she owned the whole damn horizon. She just screamed into her iPhone about trespassers on her private waterfront, oblivious that the lake she'd been gatekeeping for her busybodies was the very pulse of my family's legacy, and I'd bought the deed to the entire county just to watch her squirm. By sundown, when a sheriff's cruiser lit up her driveway like a bad Christmas, she'd be the one in cuffs, her empire of passive-aggressive emails crumbling faster than her Botox smile. The air was thick with that late summer humidity that clings to your skin like regret, the kind that makes every breath feel like you're inhaling yesterday's mistakes. I'd parked far enough back that the dust from my tires wouldn't betray me, but close enough to hear the muffled fury leaking through her open garage door. Karen, CEO Karen, as the engraved nameplate on her Tesla still proclaimed, had always been a force of nature, the type who turned boardrooms into battlegrounds and neighborhood barbecues into inquisitions. Back when we were married, she'd weaponized her MBA against anyone who dared question her vision, me included. "Efficiency, darling," she'd purr, right before slashing my ideas like they were excess fat on a corporate spreadsheet. But that was a decade ago, before the divorce that left me penniless and her perched on a throne of alimony and venture capital. I'd rebuilt from the ashes, scratch by scratch, turning a string of odd jobs into a quiet real estate empire that spanned 3 states. No flashy billboards, no TED Talks, just deeds filed in dusty county offices, properties snapping up like dominoes under my anonymous LLCs. And now, the crown jewel. Every acre from the piney woods to the Old Mill District, including that pristine lake she'd claimed as her personal moat. She'd turned the Lakeside Estates, HOA, into her fiefdom, finding residents for unapproved bird feeders and lecturing at potlucks about community standards. But the lake? That was public access, or it had been until she slapped up no trespassing signs like they were holy writ. Her latest crusade, evicting a family of kayakers who dared launch from the public ramp without her stamp permit. I killed the engine and stepped out, boots crunching on gravel that I'd gravel myself last spring under a fake landscaping alias. The sun dipped low, painting the water in strokes of orange and pink, the kind of postcard perfect that hid all the rot underneath. From my vantage, I could see her pacing the dock now, blonde bob slicing the air like a guillotine, phone wedged between shoulder and ear as she dialed 911 for the 3rd time that week. "Yes, officer, it's an ongoing violation. They're polluting my view with their proletarian paddles." Her voice carried on the breeze, laced with that Valley Girl edge she'd never shaken from her Stanford days, now sharpened into something venomous. Slipping through the underbrush like a ghost from our shared past, I edged closer, heart pounding not from fear, but from the sweet nectar of anticipation. This was an impulse. It was choreography. I timed it to the minute, knowing her schedule as intimately as I once knew her coffee order. Black, no sugar, with a side of condescension. The kayakers? Hired actors. Locals I'd paid double to play the part of entitled outsiders. The pollution? A flotilla of inflatable swans I'd personally launched at dawn, bobbing like middle fingers on the ripples. She spotted the cruiser first, tires squealing as it crested the hill. Deputy Harlan, good old boy I'd golfed with last month, stepped out slow, hat tipped back, chewing on a toothpick like it was the height of drama. "Ma'am, you called about a trespass again?" His drawl was pure Texas panhandle, lazy as molasses but eyes sharp as a hawk's. Karen whirled, arms akimbo in that power pose she'd perfected in deposition photos. "Deputy, finally, these vagrants are back, desecrating the lake. Look," she jabbed a manicured finger at the swans, now tangled in weeds like drunken party crashers. "And that man over there, he's been lurking all afternoon, probably scouting for a burglary." Harlan squinted my way, but I melted back into the oaks, pulse steady. We'd rehearsed this. A nod was all it took. He scratched his jaw, feigning confusion. "Lurkin, you say? Well, ma'am, that lake's county property. Public access, last I checked." Her laugh was a bark, engineered to disarm, but landing like shattered glass. County property? Oh, honey, that's adorable. I run the HOA here. We got bylaws thicker than your rulebook. This is private enclave territory, gated, guarded, and gated again. Now arrest them. I couldn't help the grin creeping under my collar. Private enclave? The gates were rusted relics from the 80s, and the guards? Underpaid rent-a-cops I'd poached with better pay and benefits. But Harlan played along, radio crackling, as he called it in. Dispatch, we got a 10 to 16 at Lakeside. Possible dispute over water rights. Water rights. The phrase hung in the air like smoke from a backfired engine. That's when the real hook sank in. Karen's empire wasn't built on spreadsheets alone. It was on lies, on the forged easement she'd slipped into our divorce settlement, claiming the lake as marital asset number one. She'd sold it to developers for a cool 8 figures, pocketing the cash while I licked wounds in a motel off I-35. But I'd clawed it back, piece by piece, until the county clerk's office stamped my name on every title from here to the horizon. As sirens wailed distant reinforcements, I circled wide, emerging on the far bank where the public ramp kissed the shore. A cluster of locals, my locals now, gathered, phones out, live streaming the showdown like it was the Super Bowl of suburbia. Karen's face twisted from outrage to something feral as she spotted me wading in, casual as a Sunday fisherman, pole in hand. "You," she spat, vaulting the dock's edge in heels that screamed for mercy. "Security, trespasser alert." But security was sipping coffee in my diner 2 miles down, and the only alert was the one I'd set on her Ring camera feed, piping straight to my phone. I reeled in slow, letting the lines sing through the guides, the bobber dancing like it knew the punchline. "Afternoon, Karen. Fine day for bass, ain't it?" Her eyes narrowed to slits, recognition flickering like a bad bulb. "Who the hell are you? And get off my lake." Harlan ambled over, cruiser lights pulsing soft blue against the water. "Ma'am, this here's Mr. Ellis. Owns half the county, from what I hear. And the lake? That's his too." The words landed like a sucker punch, her posture cracking just a hair, enough for me to savor. Ellis, my old name, dusted off like a loaded gun. She'd buried it under NDAs and no-contact orders. But here it was, rising from the depths she'd tried to drown. You're that vagrant from the hearing." Her voice pitched up, the CEO mask slipping into PDA panic. The divorce court, 5 years back, she'd painted me as the unstable ex, jobless and jealous, while her lawyers paraded her as the visionary victim. I'd lost the gavel's sympathy, the lake, the house, everything but the fire in my gut. "Vagrant," I chuckled, low and easy, the way you'd laugh at a toddler's tantrum. "Nah, Karen, I'm the landlord, and you're late on rent." The crowd murmured, phones zooming in as she flushed crimson, veins bulging like rivers on a map. "This is libel. Slander. I'll sue you into the Stone Age." Harlan cleared his throat, almost apologetic. "Actually, ma'am, the sheriff's on his way. Seems there's questions about your HOA filings. Forged signatures, backdated easements, the works." Her empire, built on quicksand of falsified docs I'd uncovered with a PI who'd owed me a favor. The kayakers? Witnesses? The swans? Props and a sting that had the DA salivating. She lunged then, not at me, but at Harlan's radio, clawing like a cat in a sack. "Don't you dare. I know people, senators, donors. This is a setup." It was. And as the second cruiser crested the hill, lights flashing like Judgment Day, I cast my line again, watching the hook sink true. Revenge wasn't a dish best served cold. It was this, warm, wet, and rippling with the echoes of her screams. But that was just the appetizer. The real feast? Watching her beg, boardroom queen reduced to a puddle of pleas, unaware that every friend she'd name-dropped was on my payroll now. The lake lapped gentle in my boots, whispering promises of the storm to come. The sheriff's arrival was less fireworks and more funeral dirge, slow, inexorable, with all the pomp of a small-town procession. Big Jim Harlan Sr., the man who'd pinned my Boy Scout badge back in '98, unfolded from his unmarked SUV like a bear from hibernation, gut straining against the starched khaki, mustache twitching under a nose that had smelled bullshit from every politician between Austin and Amarillo. Karen froze mid-hysteria, her claw at the deputy's radio hanging limp, as if gravity itself had decided she'd flown too close to the sun. "Evening, folks," Jim drawled, eyes locking on her with the patience of a man who'd mediated goat disputes at dawn. "Ms. Whitaker? We need a word." Whitaker, her married name, mine once, now a brand she'd trademarked like a perfume line. The crowd hushed, the kayakers paddling closer like paparazzi on floats, their GoPros whirring soft accusations. I stayed put, rod arched, playing the innocent angler while my phone buzzed with updates from the clerk's office. Liens filed, assets frozen, her precious HOA board scattering like roaches it lights up. Karen straightened, summoning that boardroom armor, chin lifted like she was pitching to venture vultures. "Sheriff Harlan, this is a misunderstanding. These interlopers are harassing residents. I called for protection, not an inquisition." Jim thumbed his belt, the holster creaking like old leather. "Protection, huh? Funny, 'cause the DA's office is itching to chat about those easement papers you filed last year. Turns out, they're about as legit as a $3 bill. Forgery's a felony, darling. And that lake," he nodded my way, casual as tipping a hat, "belongs to Mr. Ellis here. Lock, stock, and lily pads." The name hit her again, harder this time, her glossed lips parting in a gasp that echoed off the water. "Ellis? As in, Jake? That can't." She whirled on me, heels sinking into the mud like anchors in regret. "You slimy bastard. This is revenge porn for the divorce? I'll bury you in court." Revenge porn. The phrase twisted in the air, controversial as a lit match in a powder keg, drawing murmurs from the locals who'd long whispered about her iron fist rule. One mom, sundress fluttering, piped up from the shore, "She fined me $2,000 for a kiddie pool last summer." Another, grizzled vet with a beer gut, snorted, "And don't get me started on the Christmas lights ban. Grinch and Louboutins." Karen's empire cracked audible then, a fracture line from Botox forehead to pedicured toes. She'd curated Lakeside like a cult, her newsletters a bible of busybody edicts. No trucks in driveways, no flags but the approved American, and God forbid a barbecue without her RSVP. But beneath the manicured lawns, resentments festered, a powder keg eyed primed with anonymous tips to the community Facebook group. "Who's with me?" One post read, viral now at 500 shares. "Time to drain the HOA swamp." I reeled and empty, the line slicing clean, and met her glare with a shrug that said I'd won before the whistle. "Court? Karen, you wrote the rules. Remember the prenup? Ironclad. Except you lost the addendum that carved out the lake." Lie, of course. She'd forged it out entirely, but the PI's forensics had it in spades, pixels screaming perjury. Jim stepped between us, voice dropping to that gravelly timbre reserved for kin. "Jake here's filed complaints, ma'am. Multiple. Says you diverted lake water for your sprinklers, dried up the creek for the gators down yonder. Environmental violation. Big fines." Her laugh was manic now, teetering on hysteria, the kind that makes you wonder if the mask's glued or just painted on. "Environmental? From him? The man who once proposed with a base lure instead of a ring? Please, this is personal. He's stalking me." Stalking. The word detonated, phones erupting in flashes, the stream going live to every ex-HOA serf from Dallas to Denton. Backlash brewed instant, comments flooding. Karen's at it again. Calling cops on her ex? HOA hell. Sheriff. Do your job. Arrest the tyrant. Outrage rippled. Her Twitter feed. At SuvCom. Ironic now. Blowing up with pitchfork emojis and calls for boycotts on her consulting firm. I felt it then, the shift like the lake's current turning tide. 10 years ago, she'd left me for a hedge fund bro with a Gulfstream, painting me as the deadweight in therapy sessions that cost more than my truck payment. "You're holding me back, Jake," she'd said, packing her Louis Vuittons while I stared at the deed she'd just inked away. I'd hit rock bottom, Foreclosure, bar fights, a stint hauling scrap that left my hands calloused and my soul scarred. But scrap metal taught patience, and patience bought foreclosures, which flipped to rentals, snowballing into this quiet power, the kind that owns without ostentation. Harlan Jr. cuffed her wrists gentle, more for show than steel, but she bucked like a bronco, screeching, "This is assault. I'll have your badges." The deputy winced, but Jim just sighed, reading her Miranda like a bedtime story gone wrong. As they loaded her into the cruiser, she twisted for one last glare my way, eyes blazing with the fury of a cornered fox. "You think this ends it? I built this. You're just the janitor." Janitor. The slurs stung sweet, a callback to the night she'd found my tool belt in the foyer and sneered, "We're not blue-collar anymore." But blue-collar built empires too, and mine was steel-spined. The cruiser pulled away, taillights fading into twilight, the crowd erupting in cheers that echoed like thunder over the water. Beers cracked open spontaneous, a bonfire sparked on the bank. My bank now open to all. I accepted a solo cup from Yvette, the foam head bitter as black coffee, and raised it to the stars pricking the sky. To new beginnings. But as the flames danced, casting long shadows that swallowed her empty dock, I slipped away to my truck, the .45's weight a cold comfort in the console. Revenge wasn't done tasting, it was marinating. Her firm? I'd shorted the stock that morning, whispers of scandal rippling Wall Street. Her donors? Redirected to my pack, funneled into county improvements that bore no name but mine in the fine print. Night fell full, crickets chorusing a dirge for her dignity, and I drove the backroads home, to the ranch that abutted her old estate, now mine by adverse possession. The gate creaked open automatic, and in the rear view, the lake gleamed silver, a mirror to the bitterness uncoiling in my chest. She'd called the sheriff over my lake, all right. But the real call? That was mine, echoing from the grave of our marriage, demanding every drop of blood she'd spilled. Sleep came fitful that night, dreams laced with her screams morphing into boardroom applause, then silence. By dawn, the headlines hit. HOA queen crowned in scandal. Cuff for CEO over forged deeds. Backlash swelled, her LinkedIn flooded with unfollows, clients jumping ship like rats from the Titanic. I sipped coffee on the porch, watching the sun gild the water, the swans bobbing triumphant. Bitter? For her, yes. For me, it was just the hook setting deeper. Yet as the day unfolded, with locals toasting my heroics at the feed store, a twinge gnawed. Was this victory, or just the echo of her emptiness in my veins? The lake lapped on, indifferent, and I cast my line again, waiting for the bite that never came. Monday morning broke with the ferocity of a bull market crash, my inbox a war zone of notifications that read like schadenfreude sonnets. Karen's mugshot, smudged mascara and a scowl that could curdle cream, splashed across every feed from the Austin Statesman to the drudges of Drudge Report. Tycoon toppled. CEO's empire sinks in HOA scandal. Blared won, with a sidebar on the rise and rage of revenge ex-husbands. Controversy crackled like static, her defenders, mostly coastal elites who'd never shoveled HOA snowdrift, tweeting fury. Misogyny much? Free Karen, patriarchy paddle. But the heartland howled louder, memes of her in orange jumpsuits paddling inflatable swans going viral, racking millions of views by lunch. I let it simmer, nursing black coffee in the ranch kitchen, the kind of brew that sticks to your ribs like gospel truth. The place was no palace, exposed beams, a stone hearth that smoked when wet, and a fridge humming with last night's brisket. But it was mine, paid for in sweat and silence. No marble counters like her McMansion, where she'd hosted networking soirees that left me playing bartender to her sycophants. Those nights, I'd linger in the shadows, pouring IPAs while she dazzled with tales of disrupting real estate, her laugh a siren call that masked the hooks sinking into my wallet. The phone rang insistent, shattering the quiet. Harlan Sr., voice thick as sorghum. "Jake, you see the circus?" Her lawyers hollering about entrapment. Wants your head on a pike. I leaned back, boots on the oak table, the wood scarred from a lifetime of boot heels and bad decisions. Entrapment? She dialed the stars and stripes herself, Jim. Let the DA sort the chaff. He chuckled, a rumble like distant thunder. Fair enough. But word she's out on bond already. Posted it faster than a coonhound on a scent. Rumor has it she's rallying the troops for a countersuit. Claims you manipulated the county records. Manipulated? The accusation slithered under my skin. A reminder that power's a double-edged chainsaw. Cuts deep both ways. I'd bought the county not with bribes, but ballots. Quiet donations to school boards, sponsorships for the rodeo, infrastructure grants that paved roads without a single pothole named after me. The clerk? A cousin twice removed, loyal as family blood. But Karen? She'd always seen strings where there were none, puppeteering her narrative like a reality show villain. By noon, the backlash hit fever pitch. Her firm's stock, Whitaker Dynamics, that soulless machine of mid-level management consulting, tanked 40%, traders shorting it on the scent of scandal. I watched the ticker on my laptop, the red line plunging like a kamikaze, a ghost of a smile tracing my lips. I'd tipped an analyst buddy at Bloomberg last week, anonymous as a shadow. Check the HOA filings, smells fishy. Now, fishy was understatement. It was a barrel of chum, sharks circling her C-suite dreams. The doorbell chimed, a relic from her era, all Westminster chimes and pretension, and I opened to find a procession. 3 suits, briefcases gleaming like armor, led by none other than Victor Slade, her divorce shark. Bald as a cue ball, eyes like laser sights. He'd once billed me $500 an hour to advise on asset division, advising mostly how to bleed me dry. Mr. Ellis, he oozed, stepping over the threshold uninvited, his entourage fanning out like Secret Service on a budget. A word? Off the record. I barred the door wider, gesturing to the den where diplomas gathered dust. Mine from community college, a far cry from her ivy walls. Victor's a free country, counselor. Coffee. He waved it off, perching on the leather club chair like it might bite. Karen sends her regards. Says this. Theatrics over the lake is beneath you. She's prepared to settle, out of court, drop the charges, vacate the liens, and she'll deed you the East Shore parcel. Clean slate. Theatrics. As if her life was Shakespeare and mine a sock puppet show. I sank into the opposing seat, steepling fingers the way she'd taught me in mock negotiations, back when we played house with merger dreams. Clean slate? Vic, that lake's been in my blood since Grandpa stocked it with trout in '52. She stole it fair and square, well forged and square. Now it's mine, deeds and all. What's the catch? His smile was oil on water, slick and untrustworthy. No catch. Just discretion. The media's savage. Karen Gates trending, and her board jittery. One whiff of domestic vendetta, and to the mustache-twirling X in the tabloids. Vendetta. There was the hook she always dangled. Paint me the monster, her the damsel dynamiting glass ceilings. But the outrage had flipped. Her inbox brimmed with fury from former clients. You audited my books while dodging taxes? Hypocrite. Employees leaked memos of her motivational emails, berating juniors for subpar synergy while she yachted on weekends. The bitter brew? Her own words, weaponized against her, turning the mirror she'd shattered back on her face. I leaned forward, voice dropping to that panhandle cadence she'd mocked as Hicks speak. Tell Karen the parcel's cute, but I own the whole pie now. And discretion? That's rich, coming from the lady who blasted our dirty laundry on Dateline rejects. No deal. Victor's facade flickered, a glitch in the matrix before he rose, signaling retreat. Think it over, Jake. She's got friends in high places, senators who owe her PAC bundles. High places. The same senators whose re-election coffers I'd padded last cycle, funneled through my AG co-op. As they filed out, tail between legs, I fired off a text to the DA. Slade just visited. Smells like obstruction. Tit for tat. The game she'd invented. Afternoon bled into chaos at the lake, words spreading like kudzu. A protest bloomed spontaneous, picketers with signs, Lakes for locals, not lawyers, and Karens must go. I drove down, blending into the throng, cap low, as speeches fired like 4th of July. The vet from before took the megaphone. She turned our paradise into a prison, fined widows for flower beds, sued kids for skateboards. Cheers erupted, fists pumping, the energy electric as a tent revival. Then she appeared, bond fresh, flanked by private security in ill-fitting polos, megaphone of her own. "This is my community," she bellowed, voice amplified to shrill. "That man, my ex, has poisoned you with lies. He's the squatter, buying influence like cheap whiskey." The crowd turned, a wave of boos crashing over her. Liar, thief. Phones captured every flinch, her security shrinking as eggs sailed. Metaphorical, but the outrage palpable. She pressed on defiant. "I'll fight this. In court, in Congress, wherever it takes." But the bitter twist? Midway through her tirade, her phone rang audible, live on stream. She answered, face draining to ash. "What? The board? Resigned?" No, the call dropped, and silence swallowed her, the megaphone dangling limp. I watched from the fringes, the lake's breeze carrying her defeat like pollen on the wind. Her high places? Crumbling. The pack? Drained by my quiet counters. Congress? They'd hang her out to dry for the votes. As dusk fell, she slunk away, security towing her like a leaky barge, the crowd chanting, "Drain the lake? Drain the witch." Laughter bubbled, cathartic, but in my chest, the victory soured just a touch. Revenge's aftertaste, metallic and lingering. Night brought calls from old ghosts. My sister, voice thick with vindication. "She deserves it, Jake. After what she did. What she did, gaslight the judge, alienate my kin, leave me a husk." But as I hung up, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin, doubt crept. Was this justice, or just my scars screaming louder? The lake called me back, midnight quiet, and I sat on the dock, skipping stones into the black mirror. Each plink echoed her pleas I'd ignored in court. The "I love yous" turned to ash. Bitter end? For her, chains of consequence. For me, the echo of freedom, hollow as a gutted fish. Tuesday dawned with the subtlety of a hangover. The sky bruised purple over the pines, as if the heavens themselves nursed a grudge. My ranch felt smaller somehow, the walls pressing in with the weight of yesterday's triumphs. The coffee gone cold on the counter, like forgotten ambition. The news cycle churned relentless. Karen's firm in freefall. Chapter 11 whispers slithering through CNBC crawls, her face pixelated into caricature. Crown of thorns woven from easement stamps. Outrage peaked at a fever no one saw coming. Women's groups decried her as toxic femininity incarnate, while blue-collar forums hailed me the everyman avenger, my anonymity shattered by a blurry dockside pic that went meme gold. I ignored the knocks, reporters sniffing at the gate like coyotes, and headed to town, the feed store a sanctuary of flannel and frank talk. Old-timers clustered around the seed bins, radios crackling updates. Whitaker's assets seized, feds freezing the lakefront accounts. Nods my way, backslaps that landed heavy. "You did good, son," murmured Earl, the proprietor, his pipe smoke curling like benediction. "She ruled like a queen bee, stinging all us drones." Queen bee. Fitting. Her hive now swarmed with subpoenas, workers fleeing to competitors who'd long eyed her client list. I'd seeded that too. Casual lunches with her rivals. Heard she's vulnerable. Timing's everything. No malice. Just market forces, the invisible hand she'd worshipped, now slapping her silly. By midday, the DA's office summoned me. Less interrogation, more victory lap. ADA Ruiz, sharp in a pantsuit that screamed Harvard, shook my hand firm across the desk cluttered with her deposition binders. "Mr. Ellis, your evidence is airtight. Forgery, embezzlement from the HOA slush fund, even campaign finance irregularities." She's looking at 15 to 20, easy. 15 years. The number hung, a guillotine blade mid-swing. I nodded, throat tight, As she flipped pages yellowed with age. Our divorce file, her signatures blooming like blood on snow. She fought dirty back then, Ruiz said, almost gentle. Gaslit the judge into that easement ruling. But you? You played chess while she played checkers. Chess. I'd always been the pawn in her game. Moved across boards of boardrooms and bedrooms. Sacrificed for a queen's gambit. Now, king by quiet conquests. I felt the crown's thorns prick. What's her play? I asked, voice steady as the county line. Ruiz leaned back, chair creaking confession. Denial mostly. Claims you're the puppet master, bribed the sheriff. Hell, even me. She laughed, bitter as chicory. As if. But the backlash? It's biblical. Protesters at our bond hearing this morning chanted "Karma's a kayak" till the bailiff cleared the hall. Karma's a kayak. I filed it away, a gem for the scrapbook I wouldn't keep. Outside, the town square buzzed subdued. The courthouse steps a stage for locals airing grievances. The widow fined for her late husband's truck. The single dad sued over a trampoline. She said it was aesthetic terrorism, he spat, drawing laughs that cut deep. I slipped through, cap low, until a voice pierced. Her voice, raw and ragged, from the alley behind the bakery. Jake, wait. Karen, disheveled in yoga pants and a hoodie that swallowed her frame. No makeup to armor the hollows under her eyes. Bond conditions kept her caged local. No jets-to-jet set escape. And here she was, cornered like a raccoon in trash. I stopped, hands in pockets. The .45's ghost wait, a distant memory. Karen. She advanced hesitant, hands wringing like dish rags. This isn't you. The Jake I knew wouldn't destroy a life for spite. Tears welled, crocodile or genuine, but her voice cracked true, the first real fracture since the doc. Spite. The word she'd weaponized in therapy, in court, branding my pain as pettiness. Destroy? You torched mine first, took the lake, the home, left me scrapping by while you climbed. My tone stayed even, panhandle calm, masking the storm. This ain't spite. It's balance. Her laugh was wreckage, wet and broken. Balance? Look at me ruined. Firm's gone, friends ghosted, even my therapist canceled. The comments. God, the things they say. She swiped her phone open, feed a slaughterhouse, rot in hell, HOA Hitler. Feminist fraud, oppresses her own neighbors. Outrage omnidirectional, no safe harbor. I glanced, the bile rising not for her, but the mirror it held. My own hands, stained with the ink of liens and leaks. You build it on sand, Karen. Lies to lenders, threats to tenants. The lake was just the levee breaking. She stepped closer, perfume faint ghost of Chanel No. 5, the scent of our wedding waltz. I was scared, okay? After Stanford, I had to win for us. You were content with this. Rustic bullshit. I wanted more. More. The mantra that gutted us. Her ambition a black hole swallowing contentment. And the forgery? The gaslighting? Desperation flared, her hand on my arm. Electric, unwelcome. Mistakes. I'll testify. Throw myself on the mercy. Just. Call it off. For old times. Old times. Flashes. Lazy Sundays on that dock. Her head on my shoulder, dreams shared over lukewarm beer. Betrayed by her climb, I'd armored up, but here, in the alley's grime, the plates buckled. No, I said, gentle as a verdict. You called the sheriff over your lake. Time to own the county you lost. She recoiled, face crumpling to ruin, sobs heaving silent. I hate you. The words landed soft, no sting left, just echo of a marriage's autopsy. I walked away, the square swallowing me, her cries fading to birdsong. Evening found me at the lake again, fire pit crackling with locals swapping stories, beers foaming forgiveness. Toasts to the man who drained the dragon, but I demurred, slipping to the water's edge alone. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses, and I skipped a stone, 3 bounces for lost in ripples. Bitter end? Hers was bars and bankruptcy. A CEO dethroned to cautionary tale. Mine? The quiet thrum of power, laced with the what-ifs of a road not forked. She called the sheriff, unaware I owned the county. But in owning it, I'd inherited her voids too. As embers died, I drove home slow, the .45 traded for a fishing rod in the rack. Revenge served, plate scraped clean, but the hunger? It lingered, a shadow on the water, whispering of costs yet unpaid. The lake lapped on, eternal, and in its voice I heard absolution or accusation. Maybe both. In America, where dreams drown as quick as they rise, that's the real hook. You never quite reel it all in.